Today I'll be putting together a guide for new AR-15 owners. Whether you're new or not, this video may be useful to you, so either stick around and find out or click through the timestamps. Without wasting any more time, we'll get right into it. Firstly, if you're new to firearms, you should understand just a couple of good gun handling practices before you go train or take a course. Those being, keep the rifle pointed in a safe direction, keep your fingers off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and know how to clear and inspect the chamber so that you can make sure that the gun is clear whenever you're doing anything other than shooting. The last one is important because ejectors fail. Ejectors are the part of the bolt that removes the empty casing from the chamber every time you fire or clear the weapon. If it fails, you could be left with a hot gun and not know it. Make a good habit of checking your chamber every time you're doing something other than shooting. Now for the part that pretty much everybody came here to see. There's a few things that you should do upon taking the rifle out of the box. First being, inspect the staking on your gas key and your castle nut. After that, you should check to see if there's any loose bolts or pins. This part isn't exactly necessary, but I like to wipe out the receiver and go ahead and lube both the charging handle and the bolt carrier, and then I like to lube the trigger assembly. If you do this part, just be sure not to over lube it. And if you do over lube it, don't worry about it. It's not like anything bad is going to happen. It'll just seep out of the receiver when you're shooting it. Next thing, you can go ahead and start attaching your sights, your lights, your slings, whatever you bought for the gun, and basically just go ahead and start getting familiar with how to run it. As far as things that you should get familiar with, once you got everything attached, you should get familiar with flipping the safety on and off. It's really simple to do with just your firing hand. It's as simple as taking your thumb and sweeping downward to get it into the firing position, and bringing your index out and sweeping backwards to bring it back into safety. When you're practicing, you should start to build up the habit to put the gun on safety when you're not aiming down sights, and to take it off when you start to aim down sights. With enough practice, you can do it fast enough to a point where it doesn't really bother you as far as times go. If you like to train with a timer, it won't slow you down at all if you actually spend the time to practice it. The next thing to talk about is loading the gun. Loading the AR-15 is simple. If it's done incorrectly, you could have a failure to feed, or the magazine can fall out, which I know from experience is pretty embarrassing. Another thing is that if you don't load it correctly, the bolt could stay out of battery. So it's as simple as tucking the stock into your armpit and inserting the magazine until you hear it click or until you can't pull it out anymore, and then going ahead and cycling the action with your non-dominant hand. Pretty much if you don't hear it click, and if you could actually still pull it out, what's going to happen is it won't chamber the second round. It may not chamber a round at all in the first place, and it could also fall out of the gun when you fire. While you're practicing, I mean, if you have this happen, you could practice something like tap, rack, bang, which is basically tapping the bottom of the magazine, racking the gun, and then firing. The tap seats the magazine, the rack chambers the next round, and of course, then you can fire. It's important that you don't ride the bolt forward. If you don't, like I said earlier, the bolt will be left out of battery. If you do it, don't beat yourself up about it. Literally just hit the forward assist. Before we go to shoot, we want to cover a couple things. Well, a few things. Stance, grip, muzzle awareness, and reloading. Your stance should be feet shoulder width apart, right foot back and straight. The left foot should be forward and bent a little bit so that you can lean into the recoil of the gun. As far as the grip goes, place the stock in the cup of your shoulder. Your non-dominant hand should be in the shape of a C with your thumb over the barrel, over the bore, and the rest of your fingers, of course, cupping around. Your right hand or your firing hand should, of course, be on the pistol grip, but your thumb should be on the opposite side of the grip from your fingers. Along with the grip, another thing that's important is your muzzle awareness. A couple things you should practice, or a couple positions that you should know is high port, high ready, low port, and low ready. This pretty much allows you to move without needlessly flagging your teammates, your classmates, your family, whoever is around you that is not the target of your actions. Now I'm gonna quickly cover reloading. The only difference between reloading and loading the gun is you're stripping an empty magazine out and you're using the bolt release to load the next round instead of using the charging handle. There's two ways to handle this. You got what we're gonna call it a deliberate reload, and then you have what other people call the tactical reload. I should have said there's three ways to do it. There's a deliberate reload, a hasty reload, and a tactical reload. So the only difference between a deliberate and a hasty is instead of dropping the mag, like I said in this video, you're supposed to stow the mag. Instead of throwing it on the ground or dropping it on the ground, you put it back into your chest rig, plate carrier, or into your dump pouch, and then load another magazine. To do a deliberate reload, tuck the stock in your armpit and simultaneously press the mag release. If the mag falls out, you're clear to insert another one. If it doesn't fall out, just strip it and insert another one. Once it's inserted, use your thumb to hit the bolt release and reestablish your grip and sight picture. To do a tactical reload, press the mag release while you're holding the gun up with your dominant hand. As the old mag falls out, go ahead and stick a new one in while maintaining your sight picture so that when it's inserted and you hear it click, you go ahead and reestablish your grip and you can start to fire again. It's the fastest way to get back on the gun, but you got to spend some time actually practicing it, because if you don't, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to insert the mag right the first time. So you might actually spend more time trying to finish that reload than you would have if you would have just did a deliberate one. Finally, we'll talk about training in dry fire. I recommend anybody new to the platform take at least one course so that they can learn how to zero the rifle, maintain the rifle, and so that they can also learn basic marksmanship principles. These are the building blocks to actually be good, you know, and actually be able to defend your home and your property. I mean, if you don't take a course and learn those things, you shortchange yourself by a lot when you actually have to use this in a life or death situation. But we'll go ahead and talk about dry fire. It's essentially just building muscle memory when it comes to things like attaining proper sight picture, clearing malfunctions, and actually reloading. When I was first starting out, I had just turned 18. I was working a pretty low paying job, to the point where I bought my first rifle, but I couldn't afford, you know, enough bullets to fill all 5 of the magazines that I had. So the first thing I did when I got home was start dry firing. I was practicing my low ready transitions, my high ready transitions, practicing the reloads, and eventually I got to the point where I basically started combining them. So before you try dry firing, make sure you actually clear the gun and ensure that the magazines you're using are empty. Majority of the stories I hear about people having NDs are people saying, yeah, I tried to dry fire, but I accidentally loaded a round, and now they done blew a hole in the wall or shot through their apartment, you know, and endangered other people. So be sure that you clear the gun and check the chamber, and then make sure that the magazines you're using are actually empty. So basically how I did it, I basically picked a spot on the wall, or I put a sticky note on the wall to actually use for my target, and I would practice bringing the gun down from high ready or up from low ready into the proper sight picture as fast as I could. Then I would deliberately press the trigger until I felt the trigger wall, and then a clean break. The trigger wall is basically what you feel when you apply attention to the trigger and you feel it stop. If it was a clean trigger break, the gun didn't move at all. The more you do it, the faster you'll get, and the better you'll be, you know, at transitioning from low ready or high ready. You got to make sure though that you're actually correcting yourself. You correct your grip, your stance, your trigger pull, the speed you do it, all of it. You got to be very self-aware and make sure that you're actually improving and doing it correctly, because the more you do it, if you're doing it wrong, it's going to be harder to break the bad habits that you created if you haven't actually spent the time to actually be aware of yourself and your movements and make improvement. Once you've heard the trigger click, you'll have to cycle the action again to fire it again, unless you have something like the Blackbeard from Mantis X. As far as reloads go, I just practice dropping the empty mag and inserting another empty mag. So I would lock the bolt back, drop the empty mag, insert another empty mag, hit the bolt release, and basically restart. That'll help you build your muscle memory, and you'll get faster at doing it. It'll be a more clean reload the more you do it, and you'll be able to bring a lot of times down. Whether you're competing, you're shooting off of a timer and running drills, things like that, you'll get a lot faster if you actually spend time to practice the reload. Eventually, I started to combine them. So basically, I would bring the gun down from low ready, pull the trigger, and because of the fact that you can't have the bolt locked back and actually pull the trigger at the same time, I would pull the trigger and then just drop the mag, insert the new mag, send the bolt home. So I was practicing getting my sight alignment correct and the reload. Finally, we done reached the end of the guide. If you find it useful or helpful and you want to see more guides in the future, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, whatever you want to do. If you don't like it, dislike it. Until next time, see ya.